Man, it really seems like Libs of TikTok, or Chaya Rychik, can never forget to use her full name, you know, is kind of fallen off lately, right? Ever since her debate with Taylor Lorenz, where she got, like, pretty utterly embarrassed. Like, if you don't think she did, you're huffing copium big time. She couldn't even, like, hold down a single position she supposedly believes in. Like, she wouldn't stand by anything. She just kept walking things back. It was really funny to watch, especially as she started to stammer and almost, like, her voice started to sound on the verge of tears for a little bit. It was very funny. I did a whole segment reacting to that whole debate. If you want to go and watch it, it's on my channel. It went out a couple weeks ago, so you can just scroll back a bit or search Xanderhall and then, like, Libs of TikTok debate or something. But it seems we're kind of continuing the pattern now, as recently Libs of TikTok did some sort of speaking engagement where people could show up and ask questions and, like, even do a little bit of heckling, I suppose. And this account called Bryce Green tweeted an interaction in text that they had and then attached a video. I'm obviously not going to just read out the interaction. Instead, we're going to watch the video, but let's go ahead and watch this and see how quickly she breaks down when asked a simple question. Can you define wokeness? This thing that you have based your entire political identity around being against. Can you define it?
Of our lives. It's in our kids' schools. It's on the college campuses.
That's really quiet. I'm going to turn it up with the volume booster. Hold on, chat. There we go.
It is in the of our lives. It's in our kids' schools. It's on the college campuses. It is in the workforce. It is in the streets. It's when you go to the store. I mean, like, you can't do anything in peace without this wokeness being shoved down your throat wherever you go. So, do you have a question? Is there something funny?
I do.
Yeah, sure.
How do you define wokeness?
Wokeness is the destruction of...
I love that the second she said shoved down your throat wherever you go, several people in the crowd giggled, like 15-year-olds, like 13-year-olds. Like, shoved down your throat. Hey, Beavis. She said shoved down your throat. Yeah, bud. Yeah, she did.
Wokeness is the destruction of normalcy and of our lives.
Wait, did she just say the destruction of normalcy? She just kind of stutters off and everyone laughs. It was literally just a repeat of exactly what happened during the Taylor Lorenz debate. She gets challenged and she's like, uh-oh, my dialogue tree did not account for this. Uh-oh. And she starts bugging out like a broken AI and starts spitting out random words like bridged by and Literal broken NPC. I swear to God, she was made in a factory and she's bugging. Like, she hasn't had a software update in a while and she's starting to break down. Funny enough, though, she started, like, another big crusade, but this time against the, like, BDSM community, apparently. This YouTuber named Evie Lupine with, like, holy shit, that's a lot of subscribers. 263,000 subscribers. Never heard of this channel before, but I'll drop her video in the chat. I recommend you guys go send support, I suppose. It's called Libs of TikTok is Doxxing the BDSM community. So let's see where Libs of TikTok's fall off is leading her to. Because this is a very weird group to target, considering it's just adults consensually tying each other up and shit. Like, who cares?
No intro today. And if you've been on my channel before, you likely can tell why that is. We just have some stuff that is very serious, and I wanted to cover it as soon as possible because I didn't know who else on YouTube was going to be covering it. So please forgive me for once again talking about a serious topic. I promise I'm trying to get away from stuff like this. But I'll go ahead and say it. The reason why I'm making this video is because Libs of TikTok is now directly attacking the BDSM community. If you've been living under a rock and you have a blessed ignorance of who Libs of TikTok is, please turn back now, preserve your sanity. But for those of you who maybe kind of recognize the name and are like, oh, I don't quite know who that is though, let me go ahead and give you a quick refresher. Libs of TikTok is a social media handle used by
I like to lead with domestic terrorists, okay? Listen. Libs of TikTok, for everything that she does, we cannot ever let her live down the fact that after falsely reporting that Boston's Children's Hospital was providing sex reassignment surgeries to minors, it was forced to shut down for multiple days due to constant bomb threats. Thankfully, none were determined to be legitimate bomb threats with any real danger behind them. But the fact that the bomb threats were called in anyway is a form of intimidation and a way to shut down the children's hospital. I mean, that's just a nightmarish thing. I mean, how can anybody say that, knowing that is the outcome of her covering falsely something like that in such a way, how can she go on talking about this if she's not just a demonically evil person? Like, she has to know that, that was wrong by this point. She has to know the outcomes that action had. There's no getting around that. That is truly one of the worst, if not the worst thing she has done. Game Master 19 seems to have some problems with their stream, but if anyone else is having that problem, let me know, because obviously, if stream's fucking up, I need to know that.
Rychik. Rychik, who used to work in the real estate industry, started posting under this account name in early 2021. A little over a year later, journalist Taylor Lorenz was the first to reveal that Rychik was behind the account, who up to this point had been posting anonymously. The outrage this sparked is an entirely...
Dude, the doxing of Chaya Rychik was essentially on par with, how much of an outrage there was over the doxing of Stone Toss. It's not even a fucking joke. It's pretty analogous, pretty much. And the funny thing as well is I feel like the doxing of Stone Toss is arguably less defensible than the doxing of Libs of TikTok. For as bad as Stone Toss is, as far as I know, there's no politicians directly referencing him as an inspiration for any of their policies or political decisions. Libs of TikTok, on the other hand, has been credited countless times as the inspiration for countless bills that have been made to crack down on the rights of LGBT people. So I think that Libs of TikTok being so influential in American politics while remaining anonymous was just an untenable thing, on its own, just not a thing that should principally happen, left or right, I don't care. You shouldn't be this, anonymous, faceless, political pundit that's, affecting real-world politics and no one knows what your real name is or what your face looks like. That just sounds really shady and not democratic to me. That doesn't sound very democracy to me, personally. But with, Stone Toss, I would argue that's less defensible because he was just a dumbass comic artist that made Nazi comics. But yeah, people lost their fucking minds over Taylor Lorenz doxing, quote-unquote, Libs of TikTok. I guess technically it was doxing, but, I mean, it was literally just exposing her real name. That was it. I don't think anything else was doxed. I guess maybe employer, too, where she worked, if it was relevant, but I think it was just her name.
A different story. I want to recognize it's there, but I'll just leave it at that. Do your own research if you want to. Libs of TikTok, though, started as something of a reply guy account, commenting under the posts of famous conservative Twitter.
God, Cat Turd being the name of one of the most influential conservative pundits in all of Twitter. I don't really see Cat Turd around anymore. I think I blocked the account because I was so sick of seeing their takes. And I couldn't stop thinking about the fact that they were into eating cat shit every time I saw their posts. That's real. You can look it up. They have a cat shit fetish. That's why their name is that. I couldn't stop getting reminded of that every time I saw their tweets. So I can't tell you if this account has fallen off or if they're bigger than ever and doing better than ever. And I just don't see their tweets anymore because I blocked them. But yeah, Cat Turd being the face of conservative politics for a while is certainly something. Certainly something. Why are you weird champing me? Weird champ Cat Turd.
users. Rychik eventually pivoted to being a content curator herself, promising her conservative audience a good daily dose of liberal cringe. The account's notoriety only grew from there. After this pivot, she then ended up being promoted by people like Joe Rogan and even Donald Trump himself. So you can see, even just from early on, she had quite a lot of influence. The typical Libs of TikTok post harkens back to the anti-feminist era of the 2010s. As you might guess from the name, she typically features liberal-seeming people from TikTok and other platforms, often with the kind of colored...
The whole idea behind it is that conservatives that I have met, who I have genuinely changed the minds of, it has mostly happened interpersonally. And a big part of what motivates a lot of online conservatives is the fact that being a conservative online is an easy way to get a reaction from people. If they post a conservative opinion, no matter what the context, it will get some kind of a reaction, positive or negative. And that's what they want. They want attention, and they want a reaction from people. I have had numerous friends who I have personally pulled out of the right-wing rabbit hole just by, like, proximity and just my leftiness rubbing off on them. Just eventually tell me, yeah, like, most of my conservative politics, like, it was just wanting to goad reactions from people and liking that people got triggered at what I said. You got to realize that's what motivates a lot of the people who consume the content of Libs of TikTok, and Libs of TikTok knows that when she is making that content. So she's trying to make content that will, A, go to reaction out of the left of anger and upsettedness, will also feel that need to trigger the left and goad a reaction out of the left from her audience.
Hair, pronouns, and way of dressing that makes certain conservatives seethe with rage. One form of content that has done particularly well for Rychik is attacking teachers in schools. For example, going after openly queer teachers, teachers with too many rainbows in their classrooms.
Who remembers 3 or 2 years ago now, whenever I said the next Gamergate, like whatever you want to call it, if it ends up having a name, I think it's going to be called Teachergate. Who remembers that quote from me? Who was here in my chat and remembers me saying, if there is another Gamergate, it's going to be called Teachergate, like a year before all this shit went down? I remember. I hope you guys are telling the truth, those of you saying you remember. You are mostly regulars here, so I do believe that. I know Delancer's been around a long time, and so is Summerstar, so I kind of believe that they would remember. But yeah, I saw, this is very well telegraphed. You can usually see, like, the right-wing media grift channels start every culture war talking point that trickles down to, like, politicians and big right-wing grift accounts on Twitter.
Or school staff who support their queer students.
It's about as
She
well
also
telegraphed.
promoted the now
It's about as well telegraphed as a Dark Souls, like, humanoid enemy attack. Like, basically the right-wing grift account on YouTube posting it as, like, winding up the arm, and then politicians talking about it as, like, you know, just the actual attack itself. You know, you got plenty of time to dodge that and predict it, you know? Not dodge it, but to see it coming at least.
Infamous hoax that schools were putting litter boxes in student bathrooms for kids who identified as cats. This is a rumor along the lines of the trans cat and trans dog narrative that folks like Blair White have been spinning for years. Like, no, they don't think that they're a trans dog, they're just kinky. But in this particular case, the truth is a little dark. Litter was provided at some schools as part of emergency preparedness kits in the event of a lockdown. Yeah. At the most, the events support that there may have been...
The idea behind it, okay, so litter is very effective at absorbing liquids, and so the idea behind it is that it was packed in emergency kits for if there was a school lockdown, the event of a tornado, a school shooting, a hurricane, an earthquake, a fire, like a wildfire outdoors, like whatever you would have to lock down in the school for. And let's say there isn't working water or plumbing, potentially a kid gets shot or vomits or uses the bathroom on the floor in a really bad way. I mean, you've probably seen it happen where, like, the janitor comes in and uses sawdust on the ground, like when a kid throws up in class, right? kitty litter has a pretty similar effect and is sometimes used. And, like, that's why it was in the schools at all. But the right essentially took a minute shred of truth in that there was kitty litter present in a school in some place and expanded upon that with complete untruths into there were kids using litter boxes in the school because they thought they were cats and dogs. That is a very massive far cry from somewhere in the school there are tubs of kitty litter for the sake of use in case of an emergency, like a kid vomiting on the floor or something.
Litter boxes placed in bathrooms as a prank, rather than being a routine part of school policy as a way to accept trans cat students, which, again, there is no evidence that people like that exist and were in high school and attending these schools. At best, though, Libs of TikTok routinely doxes and publicly harasses otherwise private citizens posting on their social media accounts. Her posts are amplified.
Something you gotta remember, like, most people that I know who even go by, like, neopronouns that go along with, like, a pet play type identity, even they are like, yeah, it's like, it's an identity thing. It's like, it's for fun. It's a fun thing. It's just a fun identity thing. And when people get mad about it, I like to play into it. Like, I take it super seriously and they get really mad. Everybody that I know who's into that kind of stuff has told me the exact same thing. Like, anytime someone gets really weird about it or upset about it, they play into it and they act as though they're super serious about it, and they legitimately think they're a dog, or they legitimately think they're a deer, they legitimately think they're a boar or a wolf or whatever, and it gets the other party so fucking frothing mad that, like, it's just funny to them, you know? And so you got to remember that a lot of the people who identify that way, it may come off as them being 100 million% serious even to you, because they're fucking with people who are trying to fuck with them. And so you may get the wrong impression from their irony.
Exponentially by the larger conservative ecosystem who use her posts to stoke fears about things like the trans epidemic or people trying to turn your children gay. They encourage parents to distrust schools, request that books be removed from classrooms and libraries, and, in particular, they seem hell-bent on removing any and all sex ed from schools. This is especially concerning since we know that comprehensive, science-based sex ed not only lowers teen pregnancy and STI rates, but also reduces the rates of sexual violence. It's also something that helps many children every year realize that they are being violated by trusted adults or older children.
All that was absolutely true. I was going to pause and say it, but then I realized she's probably going to say it herself, and I was like, you know what? Just going to let her go.
One well-known tactic of abusers is to limit a child's access to information, and they often try to prevent teaching the child about what sex is.
This is the reason why the right across all these red states are passing the social media like ban bills and the porn ban bills to try to keep kids from accessing any form of sexual content, not just porn, but like sex education materials. That is also included, as well as preventing them from accessing social media, where the right has found young LGBT people have found the most support. They are doing everything possible to isolate LGBT kids that live in red states, so they will have no access to support outside of their own states. They're basically trying to make like a Mason-Dixon line for trans people. Does that make sense to you guys? Like that line where it's like slavery here, no slavery here. They're basically making that for trans people, but it's like you can't communicate outside of it. And it's just like, if you're trans, you gotta like get out of there, you know? Question mark? Isn't the Mason-Dixon line like that horizontal line across the country that separates the North and South? I'm right? Yes? Okay, thank you. Okay.
Is for as long as possible. Proposing that we remove all sex ed from schools simply means that more children will be harmed for longer by those who are supposed to love them and take care of them. And hearing this to me was really hard to grapple with. It's difficult to believe that someone could be so flippantly against something with such demonstrable benefits, but Rychik has no problem saying this with her own mouth.
I went to public school. And we had a sex ed class in public school where we were shown, information about sexual health and, sex and masturbation and things like that. I'm curious about your own education. I mean, was that something did you ever go to a sex ed class, or is this all sort of new to you where you're sort of learning about how this works in public schools?
I don't live under a rock.
This is Chaya.
So you did have sex ed classes when you were growing up?
We had some kind of education, yeah.
So you do think it's important for children to have education, sex education?
If I was Taylor Lorenz, I would have asked her in response, okay, where's the clitoris? I feel like Libs of TikTok would be torn on giving a correct answer or responding, the what? In order to appease her audience, because, of course, I'm pretty sure under conservative law it's illegal to believe in the female orgasm.
Not the way they're doing it in public school.
How are they doing it?
They're giving kids porn and telling third graders that they should masturbate. They're giving middle school children guides to gay sex and anal sex, sex toys.
How would you describe this?
Guys, I'm going to be honest. I don't think that's true. I know, guys, a little crazy thought. Don't think that's true. Don't think that's true. I really don't. Doesn't sound right to me. I know. I know it sounds like I'm being a little flippant here, but that does not tend to happen in schools. I went to school myself and never saw anything of the sort. Maybe I just went to school before these woke times we're in now, but I think just like back in 2014 and 2016 when this type of rhetoric was being spouted, and well before then as well, it's bullshit. It's always been bullshit. It's wild to me that people are actually falling for sex ed is evil talking points in the year 2024. Like, I feel like in the 2000s, there was a general consensus among most people that sex ed is an appropriate and necessary thing.
Type of sex education that you'd like to see in schools?
At this point, I want all sex education actually removed from schools because I don't trust the schools to do it.
Okay.
After what we've seen, I don't trust them at all.
At worst, if you can believe that there's a worst, her posts have led to bomb threats at schools and hospitals. Rychik was recently appointed to...
I'm glad that got brought up because that is, like I mentioned earlier, probably the thing I would want the most people... I would want people to remember most about her is the fact that her rhetoric has led to bomb threats on schools and children's hospitals.
Oklahoma's Library Media Advisory Committee, supposedly to enlist her help in fighting woke indoctrination in schools. A month later, a trans teenager named Nex Benedict was killed after being assaulted in a school bathroom. This school was previously targeted by Rychik and her followers in 2022.
The current official story is that Nex Benedict committed suicide, and the suspected way is via a drug overdose. And whether or not you agree with that story, I prefer not to question the official story because, I think you guys can see where the obvious, easy attacks at me for hypocrisy would come from, right? And, how easy they would be to accomplish. Probably not the best strategy for me to take, So, regardless, the fact... whether or not Nex Benedict was killed or committed suicide doesn't really change the overall point, which is that no matter what, transphobia led to a trans child dying. So, that's the point. Regardless of what happened, regardless of what the cause of death was, the root was transphobia.
Ultimately leading to the resignation.
Oh yeah, by the way, Nex's pronouns were preferred he, but was okay with they. So I would recommend just sticking with he, him pronouns. From what I've heard, a lot of people who are okay with they, he, or they, she pronouns get annoyed when you switch up mid-sentence. Yeah, she went to the market so they could get some food. Like, apparently, a lot of people who are cool with multi-pronouns don't like it when you mix and match mid-sentence, or like in the same sentence or paragraph. So yeah, he, him, or they, them is what Nex Benedict preferred.
Of a teacher.
Well,
Some
he, him preferred, they, them accepted.
have implicated Rychik in Nex's death, stating that she, quote, has blood on her hands, and that her appointment to this organization in Oklahoma emboldened the student body with an existing bullying problem to act even farther. So, you kind of get the point by now. I'm not going to belabor it. Libs of TikTok is, generally speaking, and this is the lightest way I can phrase this, is bad news.
I would phrase it a little heavier as evil cunt.
She uses her platform, and by extension, her connections with the larger conservative landscape, to stir up hatred in the hearts of millions of people in America. Most often, this hatred is directed at specific individuals.
Do you think The Boys Season 4 is going to have a Libs of TikTok, like, stand-in character? Because, like, The Boys is pretty topical with their political references, you know? I feel like the timeline might work such that... No, she killed herself last season. Honestly, yeah, Stormfront's the closest to Libs of TikTok we've gotten so far. But I do feel like they could totally pull off a Libs of TikTok reference character. It would be so funny to see Libs of TikTok freak out on Twitter, yeah. Yeah.
Ranging from drag queens to queer teachers to doctors. She's more than happy to spread misinformation so long as it supports her narrative. The ultimate purpose of this is to stop sex ed in schools, stop young queer people from discovering what their identities are, and to counteract public acceptance of so-called deviant behavior at large, even when the people doing this so-called deviant behavior are adults. Now, I don't want to sound conspiratorial, but I had a sneaking feeling that eventually Libs of TikTok, being the shark that she is, would move closer to our waters in the kink community. The writing has been on the wall for a long time. Tim Pool and Blair White have had open disdain for kinky queer folk for years.
I mean, kink has always been, like, the primary source of tapping into a group of people who have, like, a relatively insular community that a lot of people outside of it are going to immediately make the worst possible assumptions about, and have the least possible knowledge about generally. So it's very easy to just fish for ammo to use against an entire community via small clips and anecdotes. So yeah, I've seen a lot of these videos. We've covered a lot of these videos where it's just kink bad, and it's like, kink cringe, sure, but cringe doesn't mean bad, doesn't mean morally reprehensible. It just means, you know, I cringe. But me cringing doesn't mean I hate.
They use each to paint the other with tar. They imply that openly queer sexuality is implicitly kinky and thus deviant and perverse. And they
This is also true. They love to try to associate kink and being gay or trans in a very in a way that is dishonest. Well, yes, there's an association because obviously kink and the LGBT community, these are both groups that have, like, there's some crossover, and there's also a fair amount of the fact that the same groups are kind of against the same groups, right? So there's a fair amount of your enemy is my enemy, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? But from the right-wing perspective, it's like, let's lump in all these people we don't like that we can frame as looking weird and create a monolith of quote-unquote freaks we can point and laugh at derisively and advocate for the oppression of.
Also argue that kink is bad by tying it to queer sexuality. It's wrong because it's queer. They see both kink and queerness as inherently sexual things, and thus profane and meant to be removed from the public eye.
Okay. I can think of several kink things off the top of my head that are completely straight, okay? Just off the top of my fucking head. from horrific things I've had described to me by friends. For one, I'm pretty sure if you pee on a girl or a girl pees on you, that's a straight kink interaction. That's a golden shower, right? That's pretty high level kink, and it's completely straight if it's a man and a woman. Regardless of who's peeing on who, I presume. Is the person peeing on the other person the top in that scenario? You'll have to let me know, chat. Yeah, Trump loves that, true. Yeah, post your Trump emotes, yeah. Yeah, it's very obvious that, like, kink and, like, being LGBT are not one and the same. There are LGBT people who are vanilla as fuck, and there are vanilla people who are LGBT, and there are kinky people who are straight, and there are kinky people who are LGBT.
Think back to years past when kink at Pride was a common topic of debate. Even a couple years ago, many left-leaning and liberal folks without proper knowledge or context were taken in by arguments made by conservatives against even the most...
Shoo. Yeah, it always comes back to that shit, doesn't it?
banal displays of kink gear. No one should be wearing leather at pride parades because seeing too many belts might make sensitive eyes burn, that kind of thing. They didn't really even seem to know what people were talking about or what they...
I mean, I will say, it's probably not best to have, like, dudes and like, leather assless chaps, like, twerking in front of kids at, like, a pride event, I think that it's quite a lot rarer than a lot of people make it out to be, because you go online and you see, like, 5 videos and all of a sudden your perception of the world has been warped. But, like, I do think that a heavier encouragement of an age divide in content at certain pride events would be good, such as certain LGBT, kink, leather, BDSM demonstrations being locked behind an 18 plus or 21 plus zone. Probably 21 plus zone would be better because, when the straps are coming out, there's more than just like bondage shit coming out. There's usually drugs involved, and I feel like for the sake of responsibility, you shouldn't be letting anyone under 21 enter that environment, because there's gonna be drugs. There's gonna be drugs. So, I'm pretty sure they already do that. Good. So with that in mind, I do think that, yeah, bare minimum, there's going to be alcohol, right? Yeah. But there's going to be drugs, too. There's going to be drugs, okay? When gay people party, there's hella drugs. Regardless, though, the point that I'm getting at here is that there should be a age separation where you've got, like, the more... Like, this is more of a rainbow-themed carnival all about pride, where you can bring your kids and it's like a carnival float type deal. And then here's, like, the walled-off, fenced-off section where you got to get, like, your hand stamped, and you get your VIP exclusive adult access to, like, the kink leather bondage event type deal. I think that's probably already a thing practiced by most, like, venues, but, the more it's practiced, the better. Yeah, Pride After Party? Is that, like, a thing already known about? To give it a name? Oh, okay. Well, that'd be a good name for it, sure.
They were really asking for. Never mind what people see all the time in superhero movies or comics or professional wrestling or Halloween costumes or cartoons. No. Leather in public on somebody is a step too far. It's the sort of logic that leads someone to saying that, if your partner gets turned on by sandals, you shouldn't wear...
Mind you, there's a big difference between, like, leather assless chaps, like, twerking in the street, and, like, dude wearing, like, leather cowboy outfit that's, like, if you look at it a certain way, it could be considered sexual, but if you look at it from the perspective of a kid, it just looks cool, and it's not, like, showing off any body parts that are inappropriate. It's not an outfit that would be inappropriate in, like, a PG-13 movie, Like, I could imagine RGR mentioned. Was RGR mentioned here? What? I didn't catch it. What?
And they also argue that kink is bad by tying it to queer sexuality. It's wrong because it's queer. They see both kink and queerness as inherently sexual things, and thus profane and meant to be removed from the public eye. Think back to years past when kink at Pride was a common topic of debate. Even a couple years ago, many left-leaning and liberal folks without proper knowledge or context were taken in by arguments made by conservatives against even the most banal displays of kink gear. No one should be wearing leather at pride parades because seeing too many belts might make sensitive eyes burn, that kind of thing. They didn't really even seem to know what people were talking about or what they were really asking for. Never mind what people see all the time in superhero movies or comics or professional wrestling or Halloween costumes or cartoons. No. Leather in public on somebody is a step too far. It's the sort of logic that leads someone to saying that, if your partner gets turned on by sandals, you shouldn't wear sandals in public because that's exposing non-consenting people to your perversion.
We've got an imp here. Imp spotted. Bzz, imp spotted.
I swear to
I
Christ,
see you.
this was an actual debate that happened. I was there, I heard it. And for if no one else besides myself, I am going to avoid rehashing.
True people are everywhere. No, imps are Demon Mama's fans. That's the name of Demon Mama's fans. Because that was Demon Mama's debate with RGR, I believe, was the sandals foot fetish at like a pride event or in public thing. I'm pretty sure that's where I think that's what she's referencing there. Yeah, I think I know now why you're talking about the RGR thing.
Those arguments for a 23rd time. They come up every year and they have for decades. So I'm going to go ahead and just link to some previous videos and some articles down below if you want to go into the subject in further detail. But the point is that the groundwork that led to the events I'm going to talk about today have been in place for a long time. So, what exactly happened? Why am I making this video? Well, Libs of TikTok doxed a BDSM event. I'm going to try to be really careful about this. I'm going to be blacking out the names of everyone involved. I'm going to be using a pseudonym.
Yeah. Libs of TikTok has been, since before she got doxed herself, a habitual doxer. So I feel like on top of the fact that she was influencing literal elections and whatnot, the fact and policy decisions and bills, the fact that she was already breaking that, like she doxed somebody already herself, that removes any level of defensibility she could have for herself in, like saying, oh, you can't dox me. It's like, what the fuck? You dox other people. It's like, no, it's your free game.
To refer to the events and also the venue. You never know who's going to see a YouTube video, and the last thing I want to do is contribute to more harassment or harm. A courtesy that Libs of TikTok has no problem ignoring for themselves. So, I'm going to be calling the event in question the Birdhouse. Though, if you are in the city where this event takes place, you no doubt know what this event is. You might...
I'm going to guess Portland. Obviously, I don't want to dox this place. My wildest guess would be Portland.
Be wondering what prompted Libs of TikTok to notice such an event. As it turns out, the Birdhouse was using a local LGBT community center for its events. And this community center was due to get 7 figures of government funding to help with the renovation. So naturally, Rychik had to butt in and try to stop this from happening. On Tuesday, March 5th, she posted several screenshots with the following caption, quote, "Breaking! The Senate Appropriations Committee released a spending bill which is being voted on tomorrow. It includes $1 million of your tax dollars to go towards renovating..."
Hey, Chaya, how many of our tax dollars are going to Israel? Although, to be fair, she is a Nazi. Maybe she would be like, oh yeah, no, you're right. And then go on and then do a whole JQ bit. Maybe that's not the best thing to bring up with Libs of TikTok, an actual Nazi.
An LGBTQ center in Pennsylvania, which boasts rooms to try BDSM and sex fettuccinis and host BDSM and sex kink parties.
Sex fettuccinis? Hold on, wait a minute. What? Oh, fetishes. Okay, I thought I was about to say sex fettuccinis. I love fettuccine Alfredo.
There's even a kink party happening there this weekend.
You telling me I can fuck bitches and eat fettuccine Alfredo? That's where I want to be.
Senator Bob Casey and at Senator Fetterman, PA, are the ones who requested this funding. absolutely sick that our tax dollars would fund this. Horrifyingly, the screenshots showed the location of the event clearly, along with a date for an upcoming party. Knowing how often her followers like to send bomb threats, I would be very scared for the safety of the event goers as well as the organizers. While she stopped short of listing the public names and faces of those who run the event, just knowing the name of the event and the location meant that information was a single Google search result away. I myself was able to find all of that within only 10 minutes of looking. And so, do you want to guess what happened next? Do you think that these amazing, supportive senators stuck up for their constituents against this fear-mongering and misinformation? No, they folded like lawn chairs. The same day, Fetterman's staff sent a letter, which was shared publicly, withdrawing support for the funds going to this.
Fetterman really is the most, spineless, quote-unquote, progressive ever. He really grifted off of progressive support and got into office and just dropped every pretense of progressive messaging. And now he didn't even just do that. He's also, very bitterly become a hater of progressives. He goes to events and he's one insult from the crowd away from flipping off every person in the crowd and yelling the N-word. He is heavily following the leaving the left pipeline, I guess. He's following the grift.
This project. It was a very diplomatic letter, and it didn't really give any clear answers as to why, but I think we can easily infer what was going on there. And then, to put icing on this crap sandwich, Elon freaking Musk, man who has cosplayed as Marquis de Sade, I am not kidding.
Some days I hope there's an afterlife, so I can go to hell when I die, and Elon Musk will be trapped down there forever with me. Please let there be afterlives.
You tweeted out in support of Rychik's actions, saying, quote, "Reality is getting crazy fast. Thanks for your contribution to this dialogue, you absolute freaking
I have to make sure he's down there and stays down there, Dizzy Rat.
lemon of a man."
And I have to make sure his time down there is as miserable as possible forever.
However, I'm sad to say that this was about as pleasant of a response as could be seen to this post. Most people rushed right into decrying these freaky perverts as terrible people, and how this was clear evidence of the corrupting influence of trans ideology and the gay agenda. Just really amazing stuff happening on Twitter.com these days. And Fetterman, being a different variety of lemon himself, went on to conveniently blame his team for the letter that was sent out. He did this all on the morning of the 6th, which was well after anything could actually be done about it. How nice. The distressed, rainbow-hued graphic read, "I do not believe that we should penalize this center based on events that are entirely legal among consenting adults."
Fetterman really is, as I said before, just a spineless piece of shit. He walks back everything. He has no real principles now. He's literally, from everything I've seen of him now, just a through-and-through grifter. At first, I was a little more willing to, say, okay, on the Israel stuff, maybe he's terrified of AIPAC. He's not that big of a politician yet. He could easily have his career quashed by one of, if not the largest, political money groups in all of Washington. But then he just kind of fully went down the whole anti-woke, anti-progressive rabbit hole. And now it just feels like this is not being motivated by a fear of AIPAC going after him. This is coming from hate. He genuinely seems to hate progressives now.
I have no problem with what consenting adults do in their private time.
Yeah, he's actually unironically become what dumb fuck don't vote lefties think Biden is.
Unfortunately, at the 11th hour, my staff was made aware that funding for the center, which was in the bill because I championed it, would not pass in the fiscal year 2024 appropriations process. The choice was either to pull it or watch it get stripped out, attacked by Republicans, and ultimately killed. This is not the end of this fight, and I am going to fight for the center to secure their funding in the fiscal year 2025 appropriations process. I'm new here, but I wasn't aware that democratic values and priorities are dictated by Libs of TikTok. To paraphrase with what other accounts responded with, democratic values might not be dictated by Libs of TikTok, but yours sure seem to be. When you think about it, it's scary. A single Twitter account has the power to sway millions of dollars in government funding whenever she doesn't like something. When Libs of TikTok says jump, Republicans in Congress ask, how high, ma'am? Because our system is so messed up, to avoid endless filibustering and deadlock, everyone else just caves to their and her wishes.
I feel like this is a really good, yeah, her makeup is really nice. I like the lips, like you can tell it's a heart shape whenever like she's talking in a certain way. I like that. Anyway, very good video. I think that if you're interested in finding out how Libs of TikTok is targeting and attacking just normal people, just trying to do their own thing, have fun, live their lives, and framing them as predators and trying to destroy them and their lives, doxing events, trying to get their funding pulled from community centers, etc., highly recommend you go and watch more of her content. It will obviously be linked down below, and I'll go ahead and drop the link again in chat for you guys if you want to go subscribe and send support. Obviously, go comment nice things. You know, I do not want to steal content. I do not want to be content thief. I dropped a like too, so we're all good. Thumbs up. But yeah, fuck Libs of TikTok for continuing the pattern of conservative grifters trying to weaponize people that are just like doing a goofy kink thing and that aren't hurting anybody. It's completely consensual between consenting adults, and now they're having to make it everybody's problem in a really dishonest and just rude, mean way. Let people with weird kinks have their weird kinks. Who the fuck cares? It's not hurting you.